So we started in the east, went to the west, and now we are in the Midwest middle area on Lake Michigan. The city that we are talking about today is known for many things, including its phenomenal architecture. Yes, this city is none other than Chicago. Man, I really need to start working on these intros. Hello everybody and welcome to the third episode of The Walking Globe. I am your host Anish Deshpande as always. So we have hiked through the Rocky Mountains, trekked through the Great Plains, and we have swam across the mighty Mississippi, and this is where we end up. I bet if you asked some random dude on the streets, there would be a 90% chance that he or she would think Chicago is its own state. But unfortunately, it is not.
Do not attach any association of this to me whatsoever. I have nothing to do with such idiocy, such blasphemy.
Chicago is the third largest city in America, and it is located inside the state of Illinois. Speaking of locations, let's head to the map. As I stated before, Chicago is located in the state of Illinois. It is the third largest city in the US after New York and LA, and it is located in the Midwest region of the United States. Chicago itself has a city population of approximately 2.7 million people, and it has a metropolitan area population of approximately 9.5 million people. Chicago metropolitan area consists of 3 states. The majority of the population of Chicago is in Illinois, while there are some people in Indiana and Wisconsin. Now for physical geography. Chicago sits on the banks of the, you guessed it, Chicago River. Not only that, but the city is on the shores of Lake Michigan, making it the largest city on a Great Lake. I mean, sometimes you can even see the Chicago skyline from the beaches of Lake Michigan in Michigan. Oh, you thought that was confusing? Wait till you see the next part. Now, since Chicago is located on a major lake, it isn't necessarily that high in elevation, but it is like Mount Everest compared to cities like New York and Miami, which are fairly close to sea level. Also, since it is on a Great Lake, of course, Chicago gets big gusts of wind on a regular basis, thus earning it the nickname the Windy City. Yeah, the wind is absolutely wild out here. And that's not the only thing that's wild. Let's talk about the transportation. And please buckle your seatbelts because this one's a doozy. Let's start with the relatively simple stuff first. The traffic compared to the city's population isn't as bad as you would think. It's surprisingly not near the top of the list in most congested US cities. The airports, however, are different stories. Now, when you look at Chicago airports, there's a big brother and a little brother. Big brother is Chicago O'Hare International Airport, which was the third busiest airport in the United States, 6th busiest in the world, before the pandemic hit. The little brother is Midway, which is sort of a diversion. Speaking of diversions, let's talk about the Chicago Metro. The Chicago Metro, or CTA for short, is the third busiest metro in the entire United States, and it is also nicknamed the Chicago L because of its elevated lines. Speaking of elevated lines, in the center of the city, the metro lines converge into one giant loop around the city, and in my opinion, it is quite possibly the strangest metro line you will ever see. I won't even try to decipher that, and the New York City subway is less complicated than the Chicago Loop. I don't even know, just ask Master Splinter about the Chicago Metro. Speaking of Master Splinter, Chicago is the most rat-infested city in the entire United States. So it looks like Master Splinter and friends have a new home with company. Let's take a live look at the Chicago rats and their reaction to hearing that they will have visitors.
This is bad. This is very bad.
Other than the CTA, people commuting to and from Chicago can travel on this thing called the Metra, which is the city's commuter rail. The city's biggest train station is Chicago Union Station, which is the 4th busiest train station in the entire US. And it's quite a masterpiece, so I highly recommend you check it out. Speaking of masterpieces, Chicago is home to some of the most beautiful architectural developments in the entire world. For one, you got the Willis Tower, which used to be the tallest building in the United States until the Freedom Tower came along, of course. Designers of the Willis Tower put 3 stacks of cigarettes on top of each other, and that laid the design. Next, we got the Cloud Gate, which is this incredibly cool mirror bean looking thing. Fun fact, this building was created by some dude named Anish Kapoor. So from the bottom of my heart, I want to thank Anish Kapoor for shining light on Anishas everywhere. Anishas are the greatest humans. Okay, I'll give you a break this time. Anyways, there are so many more architectural masterpieces in the city that I just won't have time to cover. But other than the rats, Chicago is the third largest city in the United States for a reason. And that reason is because it has a bunch of people. Now let's talk about those people, shall we? Chicago's people are one of a kind, and the city is incredibly diverse. People from all different ethnicities live here. Now, Chicago unfortunately does have a lot of neighborhoods, which means gang violence, and it is the most crime-ridden city in the entire US. And the West Side specifically is the most dangerous in terms of crime. I've seen that people in Chicago have a higher chance of dying from gang shootings than COVID. Gang violence has been prominent in the Windy City since the 1920s, when leaders like Al Capone were doing the duties. Thankfully, not all of Chicago is crime-ridden, and a lot of good, successful people work in the city and live in Chicago. And yes, just like New York, they have their own distinct accent.
This is exactly what I've been waiting for. This is exactly, I don't mean to sound like Cat Williams, but this is exactly what I've been waiting for.
And there is no possible way that I'm even going to try to attempt a Chicago accent.
We have been hoodwinked, bamboozled, led astray, run amok, and flat out deceived.
Anyways, I'm pretty hungry, so let's just talk about food. Chicago is known for the best types of food we eat on a daily basis, and just the normal, ordinary foods. And the two best ones that are the most authentic in Chicago are the Chicago hot dogs and the Chicago pizza. Chicago public schools are also receiving a bunch of money to send their kids who are in poverty to college. Anyways, food isn't the only great thing about Chicago, because you got some incredible universities like UChicago, Loyola, and Northwestern. Anyways, let's talk about entertainment, shall we? Now, Chicago is a pretty big sports town with a bunch of historic teams. For hockey, you got the Chicago Blackhawks, and for baseball, you got the Chicago Cubs and the White Sox. For basketball, you got the Chicago Bulls. And for football, you got the Chicago Bears. Speaking of the Bulls, Michael Jordan is one of the most famous NBA players of all time. And he revolutionized basketball in the 1990s. And even though he clobbered my Knicks multiple times in the playoffs, which I will never forgive him for, I will admit he is the greatest NBA player of all time. In conclusion, Chicago is a unique city in the Midwest with tons of people and its own distinct culture. You can come here for good work conditions, but you probably shouldn't come here if you want to relax on a beach before you get blown away by hurricane-like winds. Stay tuned, Houston is coming up next. And within that time, I'm going to head to Master Splinter's party because I can't miss that. If you like what you're watching, please subscribe, drop a thumbs up, and I would like to hear your experiences in Chicago. And if I missed anything that you want to comment on, you can put it in the comments section below. And until then, this is the Walking Globe signing off. Houston's next, and peace.